Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew Scott, and I'm a member of the California Lawyer Association's Privacy Law section. I'm delighted to be joined today by Andrew Serwin. Andrew is the partner and co-chair of the Global Data Protection, Privacy, and Security Practice at DLA Piper. Andrew is one of the preeminent privacy and security practitioners in the world. He has been described as a rock star lawyer and a walking encyclopedia of anything related to data privacy protection. Most importantly, in 2021, Andrew joined the executive committee of the privacy law section. Today, Andrew has graciously agreed to share with us for a few minutes a little bit more about his background, his role in the privacy law section, and what his goals are for the section. So, Andy or Andrew, I guess that's the first question for everybody. What do you prefer? Are you an Andrew or are you an Andy?
I'm usually an Andy, but either works.
Okay. I kind of grew up as an Andrew. Sometimes people call me Andy and it still feels a little awkward, but good to know.
There you go.
History and privacy, Andy. Um, what was your practice like before you got into privacy, and how did you make that transition or start?
Sure. I started practicing really before the internet became what we certainly know it to be. And I was a litigator who really probably did UDAP litigation more than anything. So unfair deceptive acts and practices um, in California, and just saw the internet rolling out in the late 90s and said, this is at the time, it was a very IP centric view of the world. And it hadn't, people didn't really understand where it could go. And I looked at it and went, the IP issues are interesting, but sooner or later, someone's going to figure out that you can't steal copyrights and trademarks on simply because it's on the internet, right? And so there's established bodies of law there, and we'll have to figure out how those apply. But there weren't really any rules about how to deal with the massive amount of information that was being generated by the internet. And so I looked at that and went, I'm a fifth year associate at the time. If I'm competing against lawyers who've been doing this 20 years and have 20 years of experience doing it, I know how that ends. But this area, no one really is doing it. So we're all, however senior or not senior we are, we're all at the same level. And so I just decided that this would be where I really tried to focus a lot of my efforts, and kept litigating for a while, but simultaneously tried to build this practice out, and actually did a good bit with the state bar in that regard before. But that's really how I got into it.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, how you got into it, and how did your practice develop over the years to where you are now, and maybe you want to tell everyone what you're specializing in and how that worked.
Sure. I mean, so I do, and I think we're seeing the practice start to specialize even more than maybe some of the old timers like me. But I still do both privacy and security. That's changing, as I see with our associates to some degree, and people are starting to specialize in more in one of the two. A lot of people still do both, right? But what's been interesting about my career is I don't really um, I do heavily regulated work, but I don't. I do a lot of healthcare work, and I do a lot of HIPAA, but I'm not really viewed as a HIPAA lawyer. I also do a lot of work with large financial institutions around, financial services, but I'm not really a GLBA lawyer either. At my core, what I tend to be, and I've done a lot of the breaches. You've read about, and also did Shrems too. I sort of tend to get involved when stuff's chaotic. I usually get, not the only one that gets those calls, but I'm one of the ones who gets those calls for the sort of mega breaches or sort of super high profile matters. And that's, if I have a specialty in the space, and for better or worse for me, it's that.
That's a really good answer. So you said Shrems too, and we were talking earlier. Do you want to just tell quickly the audience what that background is behind you and what?
Sure. Yeah. So that is a from the backside, a picture. Ironically, I took almost 5 years ago to the day, about a week off. I was the expert witness or lead expert for Helen Dixon, who's the Irish Data Protection Commissioner in the Shrems 2 case, and I took that picture walking off the stand in Dublin, Ireland. That's the Four Courts building in Dublin, and planned to go back, but COVID kind of got in the way, and haven't been back since. But it was a really interesting experience, kind of being at the middle of one of the crazier data protection cases on the privacy side in recent times.
And it may not be the last because there could
Maybe it may be my last, but it won't be the last. Yes, that's right.
So leaving Shrems to aside, and I know I'm sure inquiring minds want to know about that. I want to kind of highlight for our members your involvement with the executive committee. So it's a new section. It's been around for about 2 years, and what brought you to the privacy law section this year in 2020?
Yeah. So I had back when it was all part of the bar, before it was CLA, I had served as the vice chair and then co-chair of the cyberspace law committee, which I think was part of at that point it was either antitrust or the IP section. I'd served on the committee on administration of justice as well as law practice management, and so I've served a lot in in cyberspace law at the time. This was, I think, mid 2000s ish, was where we sort of had the privacy work kind of centered, but there hadn't really, and there'd been a lot of debate over the years about, do we need a separate privacy section? And frankly, some of the sections felt they covered it or they covered it their own way. Having served on 3 different XComs already with the state bar, living out here, being a longtime resident, I just felt that it was that I could sort of help kind of advance this as it matured, because the reality is there's a lot of sections in CLA that have been around a long time. This one hasn't, even though there's a lot of us who've done a lot of work in the space, even with the state bar. And so I sort of saw it as, at some level, I could help bridge a little bit of the past work that wasn't done as part of this section because it didn't exist, and try to sort of help it move quicker down the road that it needs to go down.
That makes sense. What if in trying to help it move a little bit quicker, what have some of your experiences been with the section or working with your XCOM members or being involved with it so far?
Look, I think it's a great section, and I think it's the challenge, I think, for the leaders, and it's not an uncommon one. I think they're doing a great job. Is you've got to privacy, as you know, and security is a very rapidly evolving area of law, right? And not, there's some areas of law where if you get a Supreme Court case or 2 a year out of a state Supreme Court, that's a huge change, right? And other than that, you might have cases in appeal and all that, but you're not having these massive changes. So I think what's challenging is you're trying to build out the infrastructure to make the section work, right? And really make it work and mature it, while you're having utter chaos with the law, and California being the center of it. So I think it's not an easy job. I think the section has done an amazing job with that. And I frankly thought, given that I had, run and served on multiple different sections, that, for whatever my opinion's worth, it might be helpful to have it around the table.
I think it's worth a lot. For people who are interested in the section and joining, what are some things you'd like to see accomplished that people might have unique skills or abilities that would want to come and participate and say, hey, I heard this is what we need, and I can commit to this part of the section, or I can do these things. Or what are some of the goals or things you'd like to see happen, or that you would like to help with? Or
well, and I'd say I think honestly it's where I think the section's going, and I think it's the outreach piece. It's providing that sort of stitching between some of the government agencies who are doing privacy enforcement, but it's also publications and presentations, and I think the section has done an amazing job of doing that. And I think, to me, it's always, if you're asking someone to join your section or attend one of your events, you have to have a value proposition, right? And I think sometimes that gets lost with these sections, because it just sort of assumed that everyone knows why it's great that we should have the section. Even though I think it's pretty obvious for privacy, I think the section's done a really good job. And so I think for people who are, looking to get involved in privacy, there's a lot of different things you can do. I think the section should be at the top of everyone's list, because, for better or worse, people forget the data breach laws did not start in Europe. They started here. And everyone at the time was kind of like, gee, is this going to go anywhere or not? And of course it did, right? And so California tends to be the state that, frankly drives a lot of the change around privacy. And I think this section really can play a role in helping shape that agenda and also help people get up to speed on it.
That makes a lot of sense too. What I've noticed in my early career in privacy is that this field is growing, and what we really need is people to contribute. There's not a lot of people are used to in these fields that have been established for years and years to take.
Yep.
But in this section and in particular, and in this field, we need contributors. So if you are joining the section, this is like, get your hands dirty, take on some leadership, and
exactly
freedom to do things. And so that makes a lot of sense of what we need. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you're very, very busy.
No, it's fine. No, and look, Sherry, I just have to give Sherry a lot of credit for doing what she's done, because it's, again, having sat in a slightly similar but different seat, it's not an easy job, and she's done a masterful job of sort of balancing all of that and getting the section really moving in the direction it should.
We are definitely very grateful for Sherry.
Yes.
Well, that being said, last question: if you aren't practicing, where can people find you, or what are you doing?
Probably spending time with one of the 3 dogs now roaming around my house that I'm surprised did not come in and crash this, but that's usually where you find me.
Oh. Well, you do live in San Diego, and there are plenty of great places to go that you can bring your dog as well. So, Andy, it was a real pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for your work that you're doing for us with the section and the time today.
Thank you.